So today, we're going to dive into a pretty radical philosophy for building new technology. It's an approach that basically throws out the old rulebook of hype and speculation. Instead, it builds its entire foundation on one simple but really powerful idea: tangible proof. Okay, let's get into it.
It's a fundamental question, right? And in the world of cutting-edge tech, you really have two very different answers. One way involves a lot of talking, describing, and promising. The other, it's all about building, testing, and actually showing something that works.
And this just illustrates the core conflict perfectly. On one side, you've got the promise. Think of it like a suitor writing these long, extravagant letters just filled with detailed fantasies of what life could be like. But then, on the other side, you have the proof. This is the strong, silent type. They don't write letters, they just show up and deliver.
All right, so let's start by digging into the most common approach you see in the industry today, what we're calling the white paper promise. And let's explore why it so often leads to, well, problems.
This whole approach kicks off with a white paper. And you can think of that as that incredibly detailed, romantic letter. I mean, it is packed with these breathless descriptions of revolutionary new frameworks and absolutely mind-blowing tokenomics. It creates this powerful fantasy, a vision that gets everyone super excited and ready to invest.
But here's the thing. This path almost always follows a predictable and, frankly, disappointing cycle. First, you write the promises. Second, you get the investment, all based on the hype from those promises. But then comes that crucial third step. When it's time to actually build the thing, the reality is often a clumsy, fumbling mess. The latency's awful, the consensus is all wrong, and the whole thing just completely fails to scale. That grand framework, turns out it was just empty talk.
Okay, so now let's look at a completely different way of thinking. This is an old-school philosophy that's being brought back by projects like Qubitcoin, and it flips that entire model right on its head.
This right here is the core belief. It's something they've inherited from the legends, the early Bitcoin and Ethereum developers. Those guys didn't believe in endless debates about the perfect way to do things. For them, the only thing that mattered was code that actually worked. The running code was the agreement.
So what does develop first actually mean? This is the crucial part. It's a culture where you build first. You create a working prototype and you prove that it functions, that it's reliable, that it's efficient, all before you ever make a single public promise or write down a formal spec.
And this all leads to their really powerful motto: code is the proposal. The working, demonstrable code is the only promise they are ever going to make. The act of building is the proposal. I mean, why would you need a fancy letter when you can just deliver the experience directly?
Okay, this philosophy sounds great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? How do you go from a private idea to a public product without writing a single promise? Let's break down how they do it.
It's a three-step process, but it's totally rooted in proof. First, they basically lock themselves away and just build, running private prototypes to test their ideas and really get a feel for the performance. Second, once they've mastered it, they bring in trusted research partners. They don't hand them a document, they give them the running code and show them, look, it works. And then finally, only after it's been proven in the real world, do they write it all down. And this relentless focus on performance is really what sets them apart. During that private prototyping phase, they are empirically tuning every single detail. They set these hard targets, like making sure the verification cost, which is basically the resources the system uses to check its own work, stays under 1%. And that isn't just a goal on a piece of paper. It's a hard performance limit they prove they can hit.
And the final output of this whole process is something they call a retroactive specification. Now, don't think of it as a proposal for some fantasy future. Think of it more like a memoir of a proven success. It's a how-to guide that is based entirely on what they have already built and validated.
So, this disciplined approach isn't just some philosophical statement, right? It delivers real, concrete, powerful advantages that directly address the biggest weaknesses of that promise-first model. Let's look at exactly how this creates a much more robust system.
You get 4 huge payoffs. First, that empirical tuning we just talked about, which guarantees real-world performance. Second, the system is designed for flexible evolution, meaning you can upgrade it piece by piece without breaking the whole thing. Third, they establish instant credibility with partners because they show up with a working proof of concept. And finally, and this is a big one, they minimize something called theoretical debt.
And this is so key.
By refusing to promise some grand, all-encompassing framework, they avoid that trap of being unable to deliver. Instead, they master one move, they validate that it works, and then they add another. It's a system built on proven, small, minimal increments, not on some giant mountain of unproven ideas.
So where does this all lead? What's the long-term vision for a philosophy that really prioritizes doing over just talking? Let's take a look at the roadmap and the strategy for how they plan to win.
The plan is actually elegantly simple. 2025 is the year to just make it work. It's all about perfecting the craft behind closed doors with internal tests and demos for a few exclusive partners. Then, in 2026, they make it open. They publish the proven schemas and guidelines so the entire ecosystem can learn and build on a foundation that they already know works. The strategic genius of this build first, theorize second model is its adaptability. They keep the agility to change course if real-world testing shows them a better way. The network can evolve fluidly with these small, incremental gains, and, crucially, they maintain backward compatibility. No big, disruptive hard forks that break trust and split the community. And if you had to boil this entire philosophy down to a single sentence, this would be it. It's a personal commitment that completely rejects hype in favor of demonstration. It's not about talking a big game, it's about showing up and actually performing. Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In an industry that is just saturated with extravagant promises and speculative white papers, this approach suggests a totally different standard. It forces us to ask the question, is a piece of functioning, validated, running code the only truth that really matters?